Well, Mayor Pro Tem, we've had quite the week. This has been really interesting. And, we started with the retreat, which is, traditionally the Mayor Pro Tems, and we did it in Durham. We don't have any time to talk about that today on the show, but we'll come back and do that later. But
yeah,
so that started the week where we were together for 3 days, and I thought it was an excellent retreat. I thought we covered a lot of building, self-building, self-empowerment, conversation, broke down some barriers, covered some real topics that we needed to, and I thought it was beautiful, and I look for an opportunity for us to really kind of delve into that in future shows. But kudos for that. I mean, really and truly, I think he put together a great show with a great moderator, and she did an excellent job.
Definitely.
But that set the tone coming into Monday night's meeting, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't feel a need to have a committee of the whole, and thank you for that. I mean, not that I don't love you guys, but after 3 solid days,
That's it.
another 2 hours for 3 hours.
That's it.
But we really had covered a lot of what we would traditionally do in a committee of the whole meeting. So we started our meeting at 7, but I think that the tone was very different.
Yeah.
I felt like folks understood each other a little bit differently, and you could tell that I felt like a lot of the conversation and dialogue that was happening with council on Monday night. I don't know if you felt that or if you saw that.
But we had a great meeting, feeding off of the feedback, I think, of just the retreat being so fresh, and doing all of that inner working as a team sort of just overlaid to the meeting. And I saw a lot of good that came out of it, and it just set the atmosphere for Monday night, and it was perfect.
I felt like it did too, and so again, kudos. I mean, you did a lot of that engineering, and you were the architect of that particular conference, and so I mean, really a lot of credit goes to you on that.
Thank you.
And but so we started out the meeting, the normal way, of course, but we had the 10U basketball team from Rocky Mount that won the state championship, which is pretty big deal. And I don't have it in front of me, but they outscored their opponents something like 2.5 to 1 during the sectionals and during the state tournament.
That's it.
And to see those guys come in there, it was just exciting to see. And of course, it's always a crowd pleaser. We acknowledge our youth basketball and those guys.
Yeah.
And I think you were instrumental in getting them on or Jabars onto the program, probably both of you. But that was great to see. But the other thing that was amazing to me, we did the same thing for our 12U thing.
Yeah.
And they outscored their opponents 3 to 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the difference between the 10-year-olds and the 12-year-olds is like 2 feet.
That's it. That's it. That's it, man.
Some of those guys are as tall as I am, but anyway, what a great program, what a great success, and just proud that we have that here in Rocky Mount, that we could celebrate that. We don't talk about that as much as we should.
Definitely.
And the thing that's surprising to me is that I don't see that really covered in our local press like I would think that it would be, because for 2 reasons. One, that sells papers, right? My kid's in the paper. I'm going to buy a paper and I'm going to look at it.
That's it.
And if I'm related to them, I'll probably do the same thing, because, it's just kind of cool to see your name in the newspaper, particularly if you're 10, 12, 13, whatever.
That's it.
But another part of that is it really is, it shows a different side of Rocky Mount. It shows a different side of growing up. It shows really what it's about. It shows what community and living and breathing in a community looks like. And you're showing the growth of young men in this particular case.
Exactly. And I would love to see a lot more, especially with press picking it up. So both of my sons participated. One was on the 10U, one was on the 12U.
Okay. You participated at real levels.
Man, so that 10U team, man, they are, 12U team is great too.
No question.
They just were probably a tad bit more athletic than everybody else in their field. But the 10U team, that's going to be a special team of kids that's growing up together, probably going to the same high school.
Okay.
So they're going to be special for the next few
state
years.
championship basketball teams in high school. We'll look forward to that.
We'll see a lot of good coming out of them. But hats off to the Parks and Rec department and the coaches that really just, because that's what makes it work. The coaches invest in their time. And that's actually a league that spins off of, they're the all-star team that's compiled of the team that plays during city Parks and Rec.
Okay.
So it's the all-star team that's handpicked, selected from just city Parks and Rec basketball season. And it's for every
coaches.
sport.
I don't remember the names. Can you go to the coach? Because we need to shout out to them, because they give a lot of time to make that happen. They're picking up kids and getting them home. I mean, everything. And that's a big deal. And
Definitely. Coach Guy, Coach Howard and Coach Jesse were the 10U coaches,
Okay.
and Coach Hewlin and Coach my high school classmate that I won a state championship with, Kenyatta Bullock.
Okay.
He's actually back coaching now, starting his coaching career. So those were the coaches for 10U and 12U, and they just, I mean, they pick guys up. They pick my sons up a few times because I'm at council meetings.
Well, you're busy, right? And your wife's busy. I mean, she's got a real career too.
That's it.
Independent of you.
Exactly. So, man, they do all the things that coaches do and have done historically. And that really makes the magic for a lot of change in kids' lives, just to be around positive male role models. So thank you guys for all that you're doing and do.
Amen. Amen and amen. Yeah, so then we had an opportunity to honor Peace Officers Week, and Chief of Police took the opportunity to commemorate the Officer Silver and Officer Chavez, right? And they had passed away during their service in the city of Rocky Mount. So it's an opportunity for their families to come, let us honor them, speak to it, at the same time talk about peace officers and the police force and what they're doing. And again, just underline, the importance they are to our community, and really we need them, and they are, we should be thanking them for their service, and we're doing everything we can do to get our ranks to the place they need to be. And we tend to talk about them a lot, but we need to understand they're part of the community as well, and they have a community, and people are sacrificing their life for it. You know, so it's just it's an opportunity to sit back and really consider what we're talking about. Instead of an institution, these are people that are willing to dedicate their life to us.
Yeah, and Officer Driver was actually a classmate of mine. And it's sad to see, but at the same time, it's good to be able to rejoice and memorialize, their sacrifices. And so I'm glad that we passed the resolution unanimously, and we're able to make that happen.
Well, in fact, it got to the point that I couldn't get a second because everybody had given the first on all of those resolutions, and so that's always kind of cool to see.
Yes, sir.
So we had the consent agenda, which was dealing a lot with the mechanics of city business, bonds, and providing permissions. But the thing that was interesting is that we had two items that were asked to be removed from the consent agenda, and they were the annexation of the Westmount properties. This is something we've been talking about for, it feels like, years. I know it's not been; it's been a couple of months, but very controversial. But one is that there were two sections of property. Basically, they are joined, but because they are, I guess, deeded separately, we had to have two separate hearings on them. So we carved them out, and we voted on it. And by a vote of 6-1, Tom Harris being the dissenting vote, we were annexed both of those properties into the city limits.
Yeah.
And then we opened up a public hearing to talk about the zoning of that. And so, of course, there were a lot of folks who were not in favor of the zoning for various and sundry reasons, from spot zoning to inconsistencies to, just personally, I don't like it, don't want that, what's being proposed, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And of course, we continue that until May 22nd. So we had folks speaking for and folks speaking against. That will actually be held on, that vote will be held on May 22nd as it currently stands. And so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But do you have any kind of thoughts on that? Or
for me, I listen to the actual opposition and support, and I try to find, where do we sit as a city for, what are our thoughts? And for me, I'm sort of thinking about the growth, future growth of the city, economic opportunities, the economic development that takes place. I mean, when you look at Westmount, that's almost the only other option we have in the city to grow. And looking to extend that, out towards the airport area, hopefully someday. And so that development will take place. I understand the, historical fabric of the makeup of the community of Westmount has always been. And I just pray that, we'll be able to get through these changes just like we do everything else.
Well, in my experience, most people don't like change, yet that's the only constant in any of our lives.
Yeah.
And often the change isn't what you fear it to be. I mean, you start putting the hypothetical, what could. Of course, it'll drive you crazy if you do it too long. But So, we'll see how it plays out. But I'm right there with you. Our job is to determine what is best for the city of Rocky Mount and for its residents and its citizens. And that's really our charge.
Yeah.
That's just that simple. And so, anyway, I'm with you there 100%.
And it's an entity that's voluntarily saying, hey, we want to be a part
of
the city. So from that standpoint alone, it's hard to really combat it.
Well, you're right. I mean, in the old days, like 10 years ago,
Yeah.
cities, municipalities could forcibly annex territory adjacent to it. And, the city of Rocky Mount, tried to annex Oak Level community and was challenged in the legislature. And the legislature came back and said, no, municipalities can't do that anymore. Now you have to have somebody ask to be annexed.
Yeah.
Just fine. I mean, that's just the way that perhaps should be anyway. So when you have somebody asking, well, why would you ever say no?
That's it. It's hard to say no to it.
That's right. The other thing that's interesting, though, is we had several public hearings, and one in particular involved some property out on, was it Bethlehem Road, that we extended it out until July. We continued it till July. We had two people there that wanted to speak. In this case, they spoke against it, so I allowed that just because, well, they were there. I'm not sure while it had proper notice, I'm not sure they had received it in the time that it was intended. So it felt like they ought to have the opportunity to talk.
Definitely.
But it's interesting to me, not just in this particular case, and I have no idea where that's going to go. My guess is we've extended it really to give the developer an opportunity to have conversation with the community to try to understand, to try to build some sort of consensus of what is the best project going forward that will work for everybody. I'm assuming that's the point of the continuance, or at least I hope that's the intention of the continuance.
Yeah.
And I believe that's right. But we've had several rezoning conversations come up before council, and there's been a little bit of a disconnect, I think, with the planning board and what they've recommended, what we've chosen to do, and yet we need housing, and so many of these have been about housing developments. It's a little bit of a confusing to me a little bit. It's hard to try to figure out where the winds are blowing in this particular case. I mean, so anyway, I know that we need housing, and I think it's something that we need to probably have a greater conversation about.
Definitely. I think we dropped the ball on our end, communication. And I think it needs to be a more intentional focus on how we're communicating, as soon as we're able to, when we see these projects, to get ahead. Because a lot of people that come, I think they won't come if they just have the proper communication ahead of time. They understand what's going on. Questions can be asked before public hearings. And then when they come to public hearing, they may come with a different, if they come at all, because they've already been able to have an opportunity to communicate about what's going on and ask questions that they want to ask, because that's the period to do that. That's the time before it gets to public hearing. Hopefully they have had time to be able to talk to the developer or talk to the city representative, whomever, to say, hey, these are the questions I have. How can I get them answered, in a timely fashion before this public hearing?
You raise a point, and I'm embarrassed to say I haven't thought about this until now, but, a lot of the opposition, not this project particularly, but this one amongst others, things are brought up typically about, the traffic that it's going to create, all these hypothetical situations. And in my experience, and I've done quite a bit of development throughout the state. In my experience, I have to get DOT to look at the traffic patterns. If I'm increasing it, then oftentimes I have to build a turn lane. That's not a city expense or a county expense or a state expense. The developer has to pay for that, and I have to pay for retention ponds. I have to pay for all these different apparatuses. I have to pay for the engineering studies to look at it. The state then, or the city, or whatever local government is in charge, reviews those and confirms those to be right and within their ordinances, and then I have to comply. So rarely, in my experience, have as a developer been able to just go out and do just to do it because I wanted to do it. I've had to have sign-offs at so many different levels that I guess maybe my worldview is a little bit different than those who've not experienced that. And you're right. That needs to be explained.
Yeah.
You can't just go do just because it may make economic sense. And a lot of times those factors make it so that it's not economically feasible to continue on with the project. A lot of times that's what happens. Or you have to change the project because the underlying cost associated with the development is going to be, so much.
Yeah. Well, we need, someone that can negotiate for both sides, for it to be a win-win as best as possible. That's what we need in that department. And that's what we got to have if we're going to see these projects come to fruition. Because if not, we'll continue to see this cycle of just pretend. Once it gets to us, council meeting, I mean, it puts us at a spot where we're saying, all right, all the constituents are saying no, no, no. It just puts us at a place where we have.
Well,
to
and I think
follow
that's the default always. I mean, I think if you're going to develop a field next to my house, I mean, I think I'm going to say no. but I don't know that I've considered any other options. So and that does come with some conversation and some sort of understanding. And I guess what would that look like? What do you think? What do you think makes a difference on that? Because I think it is almost an over communication requirement here.
Yeah, I don't know if really if I'm looking at it from a homeowner standpoint, and if we just take Westmount, if we take Bethlehem Road, and I've stayed in a neighborhood, and it's always looked a certain type of way, someone's going to have to talk me through these changes. Because again, to your point about change, we already don't like it.
Right.
So there's already a negative stigma that I have about whatever's changing, regardless. Like we heard about animals that, for animals that we won't be able to see.
Right.
But simultaneously, you'll have people also say, they don't want animals in their yard. And so but anything that I could do to stop the progress of it, I'll do. And I understood that. But I think just having someone to communicate, to talk to the residents in the area to say, hey, listen, this is what's proposed. Here are the factors around what's proposed. For a lot of the multifamily, a lot of people think they don't understand the actual economic sliding scale of the housing, and where does that sit on the AMI? So breaking that down to common man terminology and making sure people understand, hey, this is not Section 8 housing, or this is market rate housing, or this is Section 8 housing, this is affordable housing, worthwhile, and explaining that, these are who your neighbors will be. This is where they will be working, but having a common man conversation to allow people to know exactly, who your neighbors will be and how does this change the concept in the area. I think that's the conversation that has to be had, and it can't be a mountain high conversation. It's got to be common man, common land, grassroots conversation, so people can understand, for the most part, exactly what's going on. And I think people will buy into that better. They may not agree with it,
I understand,
but I think it'll keep them from really coming to public hearing saying no, no, no.
Right.
Because a lot of what we hear and the questions we're hearing, they shouldn't come to public hearing saying, well, what about the engineering study for water runoff?
That should already be done.
You can get an answer for that before a long time before.
Well, a lot of times, but these guys are just asking for rezoning, but you can't build it till you have the engineering study on the runoff. No. I mean, you just can't. I mean, it's just not an option.
Yeah. So, and that needs to be explained.
That's right.
That needs to be explained, and if that's the case, then okay, where do we go next step?
Right.
Yeah, but I don't think those conversations are being had.
Yeah, and just to be clear, on these projects, nobody was talking about affordable housing or Section 8 or any of this. I don't want to get a phone call. I just want to go, I missed that whole conversation. That was not part of the conversation. On
just
those,
a scenario.
That's right. Just on those two items. So I think that's important to underscore.
Yeah.
But just kind of going back to that, when we're deviating a little bit from the meeting, but in my mind, it's all affordable housing. It's all market housing.
Yeah.
The question is who pays for it, right?
Yeah. For what market? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who pays for it? It's all. The cost of construction is the cost of construction. There are some variables, but it's not massive.
Yeah.
Land cost is probably the biggest variable, and some finishes are. But in Section 8, then it's government assistance. In what we're calling affordable housing, which ties to the average, income, median income within a community, whether it's 60%, 80%, is being paid for by tax credits.
Yeah.
That the developer's getting, and so they're in return setting the rate at a lower rate, and then of course market houses is just whatever you get for the market. So, in my mind, it's all being paid at a market rate. It's still the same quality of stuff.
Yeah.
And what we should be looking at is how do we create these mixed income communities, because that's where I think community is built. And I think that's where you create learning environments for folks. And I think that's where you create opportunity for folks.
Definitely.
And if you look at some of the really older neighborhoods in Rocky Mount, Typically you'll have smaller houses kind of on the periphery, and they'll get bigger as you get into the core of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
So those are starter houses, or they're houses where you start getting older and you're an empty nester and you want to scale back. You're kind of moving back and forth to that because I just don't need
Yeah.
5,000 square feet or whatever the number is, and what I want is 800 square feet because it's cheaper, it's easier to maintain, and all those reasons.
That's what I need.
That's right. That's what I need. So that concept's been around for a long time, but somehow or another we've forgotten that or don't think of it.
Yeah.
So I just find that to be a curious aside. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to take us so far off the beaten
That's
track.
part of the mayor's brief.
But anyway, so the other thing that was interesting to me is that we do have a development that we did approve the zoning and we did approve the annexation to occur on Bethlehem Road.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I'm working off memory here. I don't see it in our minutes, but I think it was about 400 acres in total.
Yeah.
And it was about ingress and egress from Old Mill Road and Bethlehem Road, which would create the opportunity for, by my math, if you get 4 houses per acre, roughly, somewhere in the neighborhood of 300 to 500 houses, units in Rocky Mount, which I think is something we desperately need. I mean, there's just not much on the market, either to rent or to own. There's just not.
That's it. And I'm looking forward to it, and we need more of it. And I think to continue to be able to spread the message that we are open for development, and we're a market open for housing development, and we want people to make sure that Rocky Mount is the shopping place and their stopping grounds.
Amen. So what other what else did you see in the meeting that I kind of missed here? I jumped on the highlights that I kind of took home, but what I realized is that when you're managing the meeting, as you know, it's harder to participate in it. You're spending so much energy trying to figure out who wants to talk where, trying to coordinate the traffic and the flow, so that it happens as seamlessly as possible. That sometimes you miss some of the things that are actually going on.
I think you did a great job conducting the meeting.
Thank you.
Monday, there was a constituent that came up and she started to jump down. At the beginning, you let everyone know, hey, listen, this is normal procedure, no personal attacks.
That's right.
And it's not that people can't voice their opinions, but it just can't be a personal attack.
Right.
You can't identify a council member. You can say what you want to say, but you can't identify a person to make it personal. And someone did that, and you went ahead and you made sure that you had a point of order on that. And I think that stopped a response that probably would have happened from our councilman. And that just kept the meeting an even keel, and a lot of the applause that was going on, you kept the order to that, and you had a personal attack towards you as well.
It's getting to the point I'm getting at least one of those a meeting. So it's just, if I don't get one, I'm starting to feel upset that maybe I'm not doing anything that people want.
Well, look, you did a great job with that, and I support you being able to call point of order personal attacks on yourself. It keeps the meeting. I mean, it keeps it even keel. Monday was great. We didn't have any retaliation. And it was business as usual. And I think that's how all of our meetings need to be.
Well, and I'll just say on that point, 2 points. One, I hate to call the crowd out for clapping because, I mean, they're enthusiastic, and a lot of the points I agree on. But what I'm trying to do is keep it from being this Survivor Island, almost competition.
Yeah.
We're conducting business. We don't need to be, so verbal, so vocalized in that particular environment.
That's it.
And so I don't know that people really fully appreciate or understand what I'm trying to do there. But I just hate doing it. But I feel like we have to.
Yeah.
And then, the other piece is it's also hard because sometimes people come up and say, hey, TJ Walker, you're doing a great job. Well, where's the line? We say you can't talk about somebody individually.
Yeah.
But at the same time, an attaboy is.
Yeah.
So, where's the line on that? So where I'm trying to draw it is if it looks like it will cause contention and disrupt the meeting. And if it feels like it will do that, then it just doesn't belong in our session.
Well, I mean,
it's hard to know what somebody's going to say when they get up there. You have no idea. They're not giving you a speech beforehand, right?
They know, but we don't.
That's right.
I mean, but no personal attacks and a personal praise is very, very distinct. And so once you felt a personal attack, you shut it down as you should have. And I believe it it really showed, and it amongst the council, as we talked about at our retreat, just sort of building that trust amongst council and saying, hey, okay, if mayor's going to handle it, I don't have to,
Well, and also on that particular issue, we've been talking about for 3 weeks. I mean, I feel like it's been aired. Okay, I think there's nothing else to say about it.
Definitely, we beat a dead horse.
I mean, at some point, that's not even fun.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But yeah, meeting was great. Looking forward to our next one, which doesn't have a committee of the whole.
Right.
But our next committee of the whole, I'm sure, will be very, very packed. We're in budget sessions now.
Yep.
So we're discussing the budget. And
well, that's a great point. We've got 4 meetings lined up over the next 3-4 weeks to go over the budget, look at the particular items, the CIP, all of those things, so that we can have that in place before the new fiscal year, which starts in July. So we got really a packed schedule going forward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, look, I appreciate what you're doing for our community. Appreciate you being here today, and it's always a pleasure.
Always. Thank you.